I am so excited to make this dress. This will be my last make of 2023. It will be the dress that I wear as I bring in 2024. I am excited for all of the things that are to come. I'm excited for this video. In this video will be the beginning process of me making the dress that I will end the year in and begin my new journey in. Today I watched Benjamin Button, and the ending of that movie is so fitting for the end of the year. He says, "For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case too early, to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Start whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. You can make the best or the worst of it, and I hope you make the best. I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you've never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you are proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again." How fitting for the ending of something and the beginning of something else. 2023, with all of its challenges, was pretty good to me. I hope it was good to you as well. But I hope 2024 is even better. I hope it's the best year yet for you and for me. So let's get into this video that I'm very excited for, that has been a long time coming. So it's the day after Christmas in my house. That is usually a pretty chill day. It was today for the most part. I hosted a brunch this morning for my husband. His birthday is actually on Christmas. Normally we have like this big Christmas party. We didn't this year, so we had brunch this morning. Hence why I am still a bit dressed up, and really just wishing that I put my Christmas house coat that I made in my last video back on before I started filming this. But today's video is going to be a little bit different. I am starting my New Year's Eve dress. It is super glamorous, vintage, reproduction pattern that I got from Lady Marlowe. So that pattern is for sale now. So if this goes well and you think you want to make it, you will be able to purchase that pattern. So I'm going to be starting that project, but also I made a post recently over the last couple days asking you guys to submit questions for me. A Q&A is something I've been interested in doing for a while. I was always worried that I wouldn't get enough questions or couldn't make it happen or whatever, but I will say I did get some interesting ones, so I will be answering those as I start this sewing project. So you'll get to see me kind of working through getting this going and answering your questions. I will say I don't have a super huge following. I have less than 15,000 subscribers, so it's definitely not considered a very big YouTube channel. I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I document my sewing journey here, and I have a few friends who are really engaged and really support me and really follow me. So I appreciate you all for being here and for your support as I navigate my whole, not just my sewing journey, but if you've been here a while, you know I document my thoughts as I sew on whatever's happening in my life or what I'm dealing with at that time, or my parenting and marriage and all of the things. And so this has been a place where I document my growth, I guess, and you guys have been super supportive. So I thought the least I can do for those of you who posed questions was to answer them. So I am a little bit hoarse. I think it's from all of the holiday things. So I do have some tea I'll be sipping as I try to answer these questions. There's not a whole lot of them, but I do think there's some good ones. I'm going to get my pattern pieces pinned down and cut out while we do that. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to get the fabric and get the questions, and we'll get into it. So the way I want to sew this dress, it has like a train in the back and it's gathered a bit in the front. I'm using two different fabrics because I don't have enough of either to make the dress, and I'm not even sure I have enough of the two. So we're going to see how this plays out. I'm not quite sure. I have made a dress something similar to this before, where it has to be gathered properly to look right, and that did not work out for me, but I think it was because I had the wrong fabric choice. So the bust of this is where the gathering is happening, and so I'm going to try to get that at least cut out of the fabric that is going to gather more, I should say, or that's not as stiff as the solid black. So I'm going to try to get that at least cut out of the contrasting fabric because I think it's going to do better for that gathering. I was hoping to have enough to do the train part in the back out of that as well, so it would look like it was intentional, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Do think this pattern is going to be a little bit big, but I think I'm going to adjust it as we go instead of doing the whole mock-up, being we're only a few days out from New Year's Eve and my mom is still in town, and so I do want to be able to spend some time with her, but I did want to get started, so hoping to get as much as I can done today while we do the Q&A. So let's get started. So the very first question that was asked was, how did I get into sewing? I started sewing when my daughter was born, so she is 5 now, taking breaks off and on. Started my YouTube channel, I think, about 3 years ago now. But I wanted to order some of these really cute hair bows for my daughter off the internet. I seen on someone's Instagram or something, and the seller of those was so very rude that I decided, how hard could it be? I'll just make it myself. And so I did, and discovered then that I really loved sewing. And so I started my own little online boutique where I was making and selling these items for babies that I was making for my daughter Major. And I think one of the videos is still up. I think I really originally started this channel as a way to promote those items. The little online boutique blew up a lot quicker than I thought it would, and I was sometimes selling things that I had sewn for the first time. So I'd see a picture of something online, like, oh, we can list that on the boutique, and then I'd have to make it and sell it to someone. And the quality of this stuff, I mean, it was not very, very good at all. And then there were so many orders, and I had a little baby, and making the same thing over and over was not fun. Like, often some days I was just like, this feels like working in a sweatshop. And so when everything shut down, I shut it down. It felt a little weird, I guess, to be doing that. I don't know. It was a weird thing. So shut that down. But I did discover that I did love sewing, especially when I wasn't sewing as a business. I wasn't having to fulfill people's orders by a certain time and all of those things while having a little baby. And so shut that down, but discovered that I like sewing. And so that's how we got started. The next question you asked is, will you be doing any collabs with other sewists? And I've actually done a few already. And the sewing community, especially, I'll speak for the vintage sewing community, we are all pretty tight-knit. We all pretty, especially as the smaller channels. Well, I won't just say the smaller channels because one of my friends now has a very big sewing channel, and she was actually my first collab, Serena. And I remember I was just like, I cannot wait to reach out to her. As soon as I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to reach out to her and ask her to do a collab. And I messaged her and was like, you know, my channel's small, but could we do a collab? And her channel, of course, at that time was not as big as it is now. It's huge now, and she's amazing. But I just really loved what she was doing. And she was just like, we can totally collab. I don't really care what your subscriber count is, but yeah, so we did a video together, and that was probably 2 years ago at this point, and have been very good friends ever since. And I went with Stephanie Canada, who has a sewing channel, and Haley from Haley Marie Vintage. We all met up to go vintage shopping in South Carolina, North Carolina, I'm not sure, I'm so tired. One of those. We all made videos on there. I will link all of the videos for my collabs in this description if you want to see that. So yeah, and then Haley and I met up again a little bit less than a year ago. We met up in Indianapolis to go fabric shopping again, and I ended up getting strep throat while we were there and had to leave early. It was so horrible. It was so good to see her, and to have to leave early was just like so traumatizing. So I owe her a trip. This next trip I'm going to see her way up north where she lives. So I'm excited for that and excited to see her. I was actually interviewed by Costuming and Color very early on when I started vintage sewing, and they're amazing over there. That is just a really cool channel. I thought it's just really cool how they were highlighting vintage sewists of color and historical sewers. And so we had a really cool conversation about, do vintage sewists consider their sewing historical, and that whole like that dynamic thing. And also I did a collab video with V Birchwood. She is an amazing historical sewist who does all of her sewing by hand and wears the things that she makes in her day-to-day life, which I really just thought was so cool. Her aesthetic is just very unique, and her perspective on life is just very refreshing. She is a lifelong Buddhist and just one of the coolest humans that I know. So if you haven't visited her channel, I highly recommend it, and it will be linked below as well. So yes, as far as collabs, yes, we collab a lot, and we are all very supportive and friends. So in real life and the internet. So that's really cool. That's been a cool thing about being on YouTube, as well as the friendships I've made with people who are subscribed to my channel. So there's that. Camera died for a little bit, but I'm back. While it was charging, I pinned down all the pattern pieces to the bodice, and I have those, or the upper part of the bodice, and I have those on the printed fabric. The next question was, how do I balance work life and sewing? I don't have an answer for that. I have yet to figure out how to balance that. I am learning to just find the time to sew when I can. Since I've been working, you guys have noticed like my content is a lot more sporadic because I have yet to figure out how to balance work life and sewing. And then of course the kids and their activities and all of those kind of things. So when I can, I make the time. When I need to, I make the time. And by need to, I mean sewing for me is very therapeutic. So I can kind of tell when I need to create something, or when I need to spend some time alone, or some time, reflective time, or that sort of thing. I can kind of tell when that's happening, and I will make the time. I've gotten pretty good with the kids. Like if we do something one weekend, then the next weekend we're home a little bit more, or so. Like if one weekend's a really busy weekend, the next weekend won't. I try not to make it as busy. And so usually early Saturday mornings before the day gets going, or early Sunday mornings, late Friday nights, my husband and I, we don't go out that much. And so I'm able to do it mainly just on the weekends, in between the time of trying to make sure the kids still have a good weekend as well. So I have yet to figure out the balance of work life and sewing, but I do make the time when I need to. And so sometimes I make the time, and sometimes I take the time. A few weeks ago, I took a day off of work for no reason. And I sewed that day, and I read that day, and did some things that I wanted to do just for me. Normally taking off work, it's because a kid has a doctor's appointment, or there's a reason. Vacations even, or whatever. But this day, I took a day off of work for no reason, just to do me. And I think that is a helpful tip that I would give to any working parent. If you have any PTO or any time that you can take for no reason, take it. Like right now, I'm taking a lot of time. I'm off. I stopped working on Tuesday, and I don't go back until the 5th, I believe, of January, or the Monday after the New Year. So I'm going to try to do a lot of sewing, some reading. I'm going to spend some time trying to rearrange my sewing room and get it going. Going to spend some time going through my UFO boxes and see what's going on with that, and just get a little bit more reset, reboot. That's what I call the time I'm taking off work right now. So gonna reset, reboot, and yeah. If you have any suggestions on the work, life, hobby balance, I'm open to hearing them. Lord knows I am. Next question. Favorite budget-friendly fabric supply resources? Fabric Mart, I will say. And I usually try and wait until, I think, quarterly. They have the $1.99, $2.99, $3.99 sale where you can get yards of fabric for $2.99 and $3.99. And then every day they do some like random like flash sales or stuff like that, and I've gotten some of my favorite fabrics from them for really, really good prices. I've also had a lot of misses from them, I won't lie, because it is tricky to order fabric online, and especially at the beginning of me sewing when I did not know what I was ordering, like what it should feel like or what it should be used for, how it should move. I've had things that looked one way on the internet that arrived that didn't look the same, but I mean, that goes for mood as well. And I will use mood when I want something super particular or something that is for a special project. But I do believe in like signing up for the loyalty programs and using your saving points and using rewards. And every time you buy from Mood, they send you a coupon. So I'm very much a coupon person. I believe in getting something back. So I will say Fabric Mart is a really, really good place for budget-friendly fabric. Be okay with sometimes it might be a miss. But if you pay $3.99 a yard for it, use it for mock-up fabric, use it to practice, and that's what I've done. And then some of the fabrics I have from there I've given away. And so for me now, I'm trying to sew through my stash as much as I can and not buy anything new. I've had a few recent fabric shopping trips where my husband and I went to Atlanta last May, and I was able to buy some silks for the first time. I was very happy with those. And Haley Marie from Haley Marie Vintage and I went to Indianapolis, and I was able to buy some fabrics I really like. I have become aware recently that in my stash there's just a lot of fabrics that I don't like, that I would not purchase now, and so me trying to sew through my stash is going to be a thing. I'm going to try to figure out a way to go about giving a lot of this fabric away or using this fabric in some kind of way, because I don't want it to go to waste, but I also don't want to spend hours sewing something that I'm just not going to like because I don't like the fabric. This has been part of my process of just figuring out my own style and what I like, what I don't like, what I wear in real life. And I think in the beginning of sewing for YouTube, I stayed away from like a lot of the plain fabrics that I really like, and I did gravitated towards a lot of prints that I necessarily wouldn't normally wear just because I didn't want to be boring on camera with boring blacks and whites and grays that I normally wear. But I am realizing I have to sew clothes I'm gonna wear that I'm gonna love. I can't sew for YouTube, but I am getting more into prints and into colors. I think this might be the first red dress I've ever owned in my life, and I was inspired just by the silk fabric that I have working on the wrap skirt. Yeah, I have a lot of things in my stash that I just don't like, so I don't know where that leaves us as far as future projects. I'm going to have to be buying some things. As I was starting my channel and started sewing, I used to do these videos where I would show my budget. Like I had a monthly budget for my sewing supplies because I had to build up a stash. I didn't have a lot of needles or different color threads and etc. Being new to sewing. And so each month I had a specific budget. I would shop with it and I would share what I bought. in these videos. And then I stopped doing those because once I had built up a stash, I was just no longer spending that amount of money each month on sewing supplies, and I still don't. So now I'm very cautious about what I buy, and I try to be more selective. And also I'm becoming more aware that you can't always be budget friendly with your fabric, depending on what you're making. If you're making a day dress, it doesn't have to be super expensive, but like this fabric was not expensive. It's from Joann. I spent less than like $60, which for a New Year's Eve dress, you're definitely going to spend more than $60. But so for the amount of time that I'm going to put into this dress and how I want it to be special, I realized that me cutting corners on some very inexpensive, poor quality fabric just won't justify the amount of time that I'm going to put into this garment. And so that's been a part of the process as well, like learning how to, where to spend the money and where to try and cut corners, depending on what I'm making. So long answer, but that was it. So first part, sewing goals that I've been putting off. I guess it goes hand in hand with the second part, things I'm scared to tackle. I am very much into history, and I really like historical sewing, and I want to try my hand at it. I've been obsessed with the show The Gilded Age lately, and I want to make something from that era. So that is something I really want to do that I've been putting off for the longest, but the stars are aligning a bit because Brittany J. Jones a few weeks ago put on her channel like a sneak peek at Simplicity's new patterns for early spring. And there is a skirt and corset sort of top that would be perfect for a make like that they have coming out. They're costume patterns actually, but they would be so perfect. So when she put out the video, she said that they would be up like within the next week or so, and this was a couple of weeks ago she put out the video. And so I've been checking like every other day. I've even been telling my husband it's still not up yet, they're still not up yet. So if someone sees the new Simplicity patterns go up before I do, please leave me a message, let me know. Costume patterns are pretty easy to manage, and so I think that would be a good place to start before I like went all like Bernadette Banner situation. So that I'm also a little scared, not just like of the techniques that those take, but the fact that they take so much fabric. Like those dresses are not cheap to make. They weren't cheap to make back then, and they're not cheap to make back now. If you need 10 yards of anything, it's going to cost you. So it's definitely something you would want to feel ready for. And I finally do feel ready for it. So, but yes, I am scared. So there's that. And before sewing, I was just momming. The mom was momming. But before that, I was in college for a long time. I love learning. Before that, I was always reading, always writing. I did ballet for years. I loved to dance. Ice skating more recently, but I will say ballet was probably always my favorite, and writing. When I was young, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to go to American University and be a journalist, like the kind that were around when I was young. The way they gave the news, they went to places we were scared to go and told the stories that needed to be told, but they told them matter of factly, like these are just the facts. I'm not impressed with the journalists of today, I guess because everybody can be a journalist because of social media. There's way too much opinion put in the news. Like the facts are just the facts. Give me the news and report the news. And that's what I wanted to do back when that still happened. So then I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to tell my story, but it's very hard to write an autobiography at the ripe old age of 20, I should say I am. No, but for me, YouTube has been a an outlet of all of the creative things that I enjoy. I get to tell my story in real time. I get to create with my bare hands. I also get to be social with other people, and it's been really, really cool. And I'm always looking for some new challenge. My family is very surprised that I'm still here because I have had a lot of different interests over the years, and they've always been pretty fleeting, especially if I get good at something. Maybe that's why I'm still here on YouTube and still sewing, because I haven't gotten good yet. Usually I'll pick up a new task, and once I get good at it, I'm over it. But I think that's kind of the cool thing about sewing, is it's not something you can ever master. There's always going to be something to learn. So some new techniques, some new fabric you've never worked with, some new pattern. And so I'll probably be here a long time. Oh, my throat. So I got all the bodice pieces cut out, and now I'm going to cut out the part that goes in the back, and then hope that I have enough for the other parts. But I really just don't think I'm going to have enough. I think it's going to have to be out of the solid. And I really love this print, but it is what it is. So let's see. So, yeah, there's that. That is what happened. It's bigger this way. It's not. So this is gonna go this way. So the next question was, is my family interested in learning to sew? And that is going to be a hard no. I hope my daughter wants to, or even my son. But at this point, no one does at all. Not even a little. So it's just my thing. And I'm fine with that for now. I would love to be able to teach them. So hopefully someday. My goddaughter actually is very interested. So her and I have bonded a lot over that. And it's been really, really cool. And she's actually taken like costume making in college. And so she's teaching me things that I didn't know, because she's actually learning from a real professional and teachers. And so she's super talented. She has a great eye for fashion, and her own personal style is so developed for her to be so young. And so she's very, very inspiring to me. So yes, there is someone in my family who's learning to sew, who's very interested, and she does pattern drafting and all of the things. So super cool. I'll link her Instagram so you can see that. What's been your favorite project this year, or maybe what project turned out differently than you were expecting? My favorite project this year would definitely be the dress that I made for my anniversary. Don't know how it happened. Like, the pattern wasn't a hard one, but I really took my time, like, and really put the energy into doing a good job. It just worked out the way it was meant to. Like, the fabric was so perfect and it's so beautiful. I don't even remember buying it, or why the fact that I had on hand like 5 yards of it. It was in my stash. I didn't buy anything for that. And it just turned out beautiful. And I just really, really, really love that dress. Like, I will just walk around my house in that dress for no reason. I love it so much. I made this dress that I had been putting off for like a couple of years. It was one of the first dresses that I seen sewn on YouTube. Angela Clayton had made it, and she struggled with it. And it's an old Vogue vintage reproduction pattern. And so I watched her make it like before I even started my YouTube. And I thought one day that I would make it, and I made that this year. And I made a mock-up, and it ended up coming out really, really well. It needed alterations, and I made the necessary alterations. And so that was the dress that like re-sparked my love for sewing after it had kind of waned a bit. So I'll link that. That will be in the description as well. But that was the dress that like, and it's not like the greatest dress. I made it out of some quilting cotton. It is what it is, but I love it. It fits me really, really well. And that's like when I learned the importance of alterations and the fact that if you're making your own clothes, you should make them to fit your body. Like that's when like it all really clicked and I just fell back in love with sewing again. So link that one as well. The next question is, do you have any favorite decades you like to sew clothes from? How do you know what vintage sewing patterns are easy? Do you listen to vintage music? For music, yes, I listen to all kinds of music. My house is very musical. We love music and we love all kinds. Vintage, country, rap, rock and roll. If it's good music, it's good music and we love it over here. My favorite vintage, I guess you would say, artist would be is Sam Cooke because I listened to so much of it as a kid at my grandma's house. I can remember Sunday mornings of just hearing his voice so much. Of course, I love Billie Holiday, was always obsessed even as a little girl. So those would be the vintage ones, but in this house, we listen to all kind of music. So um, depends on the mood, depends on all of the things, but good music is good music. What was the other part of that? Favorite decade. So usually it's the 50s. The 50s is what inspired me to want to sew vintage clothing because, of course, when you think of the 50s, you think of the big poofy dress, the very glamorous woman, that whole vibe. As I've learned more about sewing and fashion and like garment making and what it takes to go into it, I'm becoming a little bit more obsessed with the 40s because the 40s, of course, during the war, there was restrictions on like how long your hem could be, how many buttons you could have, like the whole thing, because everything was like going towards the war efforts. And so that's when people got really creative with details and stitching on pockets and the way they did the sleeves and different things to express like your personal style while still meeting these parameters that had been set by the government, like how many pair of stockings you could buy in a year and the whole thing. So the big skirt went away and the 40s are really, really, really cool. And then the 50s, of course, which is my favorite, is the coming out of that war era. And because women had been restricted and held back by the war efforts and the restrictions on their clothing choices, they just went full on glam. And so that's the part about the 50s that I do love. Not really into the 60s or the 70s, just not my vibe. I do have a 70s reproduction pattern that's like bell bottoms and a crop top. Might give that a try at some point, but just not my vibe. A little bit more glamorous than that. At least I like to think that I am. So how do you know what vintage patterns are easy? Listen, you don't. I learned that you don't know until you just get in there. I think sometimes the less pieces a pattern has, that's kind of an indication if it's going to be easy or not. These are things that I've just learned along the way. I've bought some patterns that I thought were going to be easy that I haven't even been able to complete. But I've learned to look at the amount of pieces, the fabric suggestions, the notion suggestions. It can kind of let you know how much work is going to go into this and techniques that are going to need to be used. If it's just only suggesting silk and things like that, then you know it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to work with. If the notion list is 10 items long, then it's like, yeah, this might be a little tricky. So I think you just don't know till you know. My house coat dress from the last video looked very easy to me, very simple. That facing was a nightmare for me. The facing and the pockets, for some reason, took the longest. The way their instructions said to do the pockets was like to stitch the top and the bottom and then fill in the pocket in the open space. But I think I've only done pockets a few other times, and each time I just like stitched it to the front and stitched to the back and then stitch together and go to the dot. So the way they suggested doing the pockets made that way more difficult. The way their instructions said to do the facing made it way more difficult. I'm learning, like, with experience comes like just remembering a way I've done it on another pattern that worked and just doing what works for me. So yeah, you just get in there. One other thing that I've learned is that I never used to do is I now read the directions before I do anything else. I used to just would read as I go because my brain kind of works that way where I can do things methodical, like step by step. But now I actually read the directions before I start, so I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. So there's that, and that helps. So I've moved on to cutting out the skirt front piece. I am out of this fabric. I had enough just to do like those bodice pieces and that train piece, but I really want to do the rest of the back. Like the back has two other panels. I got this from Joann. If anybody can help me find it, would be great. This, I got what was left at like my local Joann, and I'm gonna sit and try and search for it when I get done with this to see if I could just get like a yard or two. I cannot believe this. So now anyway, I'm cutting out the skirt front piece. I did want this to be in this black, so I'm fine with this. But yeah. What seam allowance do you love working with and why? 5/8 of an inch, just because that's usually what everything is usually, and that's what I've learned to sew with. Last project was a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and yeah, I think like 2 of my recent projects were 1/2 inch, and it was just weird to get used to because 5/8 is just what I'm used to, and that little difference will make a difference. So what do you think about projector sewing? I think it's cool. I think that I'm not really a technology person, so I'm super like scared of it, and like scared because the thing with sewing and pattern making especially is it needs to be precise. So I'm scared like I wouldn't calibrate something right and I would mess that up. Some company offered to send me one if I would use it and sew something and make the video, and I just couldn't commit to it because I'm just like, what if this does not work out for me? So yes, I think it's cool. I don't think I could do it, but I think it's cool for sure. Do you do mock-ups? Why or why not? No, not usually. Always regret it. Every time that I have, it's worked out to my benefit. The reason I don't is because I don't have a whole lot of time to sew. I usually like I'm overly excited to see the finished garment, I guess. I always say I like to skip to the good part. Mock-ups are necessary. They just really are. They are so worth the investment. I will say sometimes I don't want to do them because of course you're doing them in inexpensive quilting cotton or some leftover fabric or whatever. And so especially like working with something silky like this, I'm just kind of like, how is cotton going to tell me what's going on with this? Like if this is correct. So sometimes I think it's a waste, but it's definitely not to check the fit and all of those things. And sometimes it's like practice for the real thing, just going through the steps. So we'll see how this even turns out without doing a mock-up, but I'm prepared to make alterations directly to it as I go because we're just like 3 days out from the event. So there's that. Do you follow a cleaning schedule? How do you stay on top of everything? Momming, sewing, wifing, housework, etc. I not like a set schedule, but I am a person who cleans every day, but different things every day. And I am a strong believer like in the 10-minute cleanup where I will go in each room of my house, set a timer for 10 minutes, and go for it. What doesn't get done doesn't need to be done. So, and sometimes that can be 6 minutes in each room, depending on how much time I have that day or what's going on or how dirty things are. Usually Mondays are a little bit more cleaning because just the weekend kind of build up. I don't, I used to do like Saturday morning deep cleaning and all those things, but that's not how I want to spend my time with off from work or with my kids. So usually in the mornings I'll do just a quick run through of everything. I try to get my son to straighten up behind himself as he's getting ready for school before he heads out. And so then all I have to do is make his bed. With my daughter, she's getting very good about putting all of her toys back where they go. So that's a good thing. I will say in my home, I have a place for everything, and everyone knows that place. So everyone they don't, but everyone should take responsibility in putting things in their place, and then it just makes cleanup a lot easier. So yes, I'm a very, very clean person. I like my home clean and organized. I can't cook. So that helps. My husband does like 90% of the cooking in our home. So that takes something off my plate. And I'm like a firm believer in like, we have a really old fashioned relationship, I would say, in most ways, but it's a modern old fashioned relationship. He does the things he's good at, I do the things I'm good at, and that makes for a really good team. He's just a better cook, but he can't clean up at all. So I do the cleaning, he does the cooking. He does a lot of the drop off and pickups this year anyway, because I did a lot of it last year. But now with me working and school time got pushed back later, so he does that, and he does it mostly drop offs and pickups unless it's like a special day and I get to do it like as a treat. So we just find a way to balance it and make it work. Three bathrooms in my house. I tell the kids to stay out of mine, we stay out of theirs. And then I just make sure my guest bathroom is the one that I do clean every single day, just in case someone happens to stop by, even though they're not. But just in case. And then everything will get wiped down every day. But like I'll do that deep clean situation once a week. So yeah, guess I do follow a bit of a schedule. But I'm kind of a modern housewife. I literally DoorDash mostly all of my groceries, except for the meats and the produce, and my husband goes and gets those. So I don't grocery shop often at all. So there's that. Let's see what else. This one says, warning, my questions are pragmatic. LOL. Okay, number one. What do you like and dislike about the sewing machines you use, make and model? Okay, so here's the thing. I'm currently using a Baby Lock. It was a pretty expensive machine. It does a lot of things. Do I know what it does? No, I don't take the time to like explore it and figure it out. And I wish I did. And that is one of my goals for 2024 is to get more use out of the machine because I spent so much money on it. So that's one of my goals for 2024. But I have noticed my brother machine, which was my second machine, it's about a 200 something dollar machine. It makes better buttonholes than my Baby Lock. At least maybe because of what I'm doing, I don't know. But I've gotten it out of the closet and I use it now for buttonholes. My very first machine I started on was the $99 Singer. I've since given it to my goddaughter, but to me, it did the best zigzag stitches. So I think your machine depends on your needs, what you need it for, what you're making, your budget, of course, how often you're going to be using it. But I don't think you need a super expensive machine. I think you need to just learn how to work the machine you got. And I think that's my problem. So, yeah. Have your kids, younger relatives taken to the text? Like we talked about my goddaughter being really into sewing and costuming and pattern drafting and all of those things. My mom crocheted as long as I can remember. I could never pick it up. She's crocheted my kids' blankets and even blankets for me and my husband that we still have. I can't figure it out. Embroidery is something that I want to get into. I have all the supplies right there that I was supposed to embroider, like some holly and a Christmas tree on an apron this year for Christmas. Did not get to it, but it's definitely something I want to give a try. Is it, if possible, current sewing room tour or at least the workstation for your sewing machine? Hopefully during editing this comes out the way that I envisioned it because filming it has not been that. But we have arrived to our last question. It's so funny because I wonder, do people know that I know? Like I remember their screen names. I remember how often someone comments or questions or interacts with me. Like I remember, you know? So Nicole, I don't know if you know, but I know who you are. And I love how engaged you always are with me. That's why I saved the questions for last. I really appreciate you and all of the yous who have supported me here. I hope you all had a really wonderful holiday. I look forward to getting this dress done. If you want to help me find that fabric, that would be great. But let's answer your questions. So, what is a pattern technique fabric that you haven't worked with yet that you would love to try? Really, houndstooth. I want to make like a houndstooth suit. I think I've seen Serena do it. I've seen a few other people do it. Really scared of matching stripes and plaids and whatnot. Want to try that. I want to try something really tailored and structured like a suit or a blazer. Like that would be a dream. What is your worst sewing habit? Not doing mock-ups, not thoroughly reading the directions, which I've started to do now, and take notes during the reading of the instructions. Like, know what you're getting into before you get into it. Worst, really my worst sewing habit is not following the pattern, the layout for the cutting out the fabric. So that's bad, and it's cost me several times. If you could have an unlimited supply of something for the rest of your life, what would it be? This one had me, and I thought about it. My first answer was going to be beach access because I love the beach. I feel like myself at the beach. I feel really good and healthy and strong. I love the beach. I love to surf. I love to swim, like all of it. But I'm going to say plane tickets because I've had other really great experiences that weren't necessarily at a beach. So if I had the plane tickets, I could go to the beach, but I could also go to the other places. So that's it. There's the Q&A. I hope it lived up to your expectations. I hope you had a really good holiday. I look forward to getting this dress done. The video hopefully is up very soon. I hope this doesn't end up in the UFO pile. I guess you will just have to come back and see. And I'll see you in my next video that is soon and sure to come.